Hi, my name is Robert. This video is designed to give you step-by-step detailed instruction on completing the task at hand. Visit my YouTube channel and watch my disclaimer video. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you find the information you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. In this video, I'm going to show you how to change the gears inside the cluster. Mostly people do this to the VDO clusters. The VDO cluster, and you got a Yaxi cluster, but the VDO cluster has the total mileage on the bottom, and the tach only goes to 7. The Yaxi cluster, the tach goes all the way over to 8, and the total mileage is above the trip mileage. I highly recommend that you change your odometer gear, because if your odometer is not working, it's hard to figure out when to change your oil and when to change your timing belt and other things like that. These are the tools you need to repair the ODO on the 850 cluster. The reason you need so many tools is it's best to take the dash pad off so you don't damage it getting the cluster out. So there's a 1/4-inch driver with the 10mm socket. You got a socket adapter for your torque bits. You got Phillips. You got a T25, a T20, and a small Phillips, regular size Phillips, flat tip screwdriver or a bone tool. And then I have these bit kits. There's a 10mm torque in there that you need, and then a small screwdriver kit. Okay, before you take this cluster out, you want to check the light bulbs and see what light bulbs you're going to need to replace. Because the best time to change these light bulbs and fix things in this cluster is when you have it out. You keep going back and forth under this dash, you'll probably just tear it up because all this plastic is brittle. Okay, like in the other video, these two latches hold the cluster in, and as you can see, this tab broke clean off the dash and came out with the cluster. And the bottom of it has 2 tabs that you got to lift it out of. If you have a turbo, you got the vacuum line on the back of it that you got to unplug. So be aware of that. Okay, once you have the cluster out, you can replace light bulbs by twisting these and pulling them out. These bulbs actually pull out of those sockets, and those are the kind of light bulbs that go in for your main 3 lights. These are your turn signal light bulbs here. Pull those out. Those are an assembly. You have to buy these as an assembly, and those are similar to the ones that go into your warning lights. Now, if you want to disconnect the warning light that you have, you might want to do that, like your service engine soon light. A lot of people disconnect that, but if you have a 95 or newer, you can just go ahead and reset that under the hood. I'm sorry, a 95 or older, 93, 94, 95. Then it even has some that have plugs in them. In case you take a bulb out, you could put a plug in it, and then you won't be able to see that with the sun shining on it. So if you need a plug, you might want to get them from the salvage yard or something. Next, you have to take the cluster apart, and what I do is, I think these are T15s or T10s. You got to take all these screws out around the edge, and then you got miniature Phillips screwdriver right here. You got to take these 3 Phillips out as well. So let me go ahead and start taking those screws out around the edge. Once you got those 9 screws removed from the edge of the cluster, go ahead and pull the front of the cluster off of the back. You come back to the front and you see the little arms here. Make special note of where those needles are, because if they come off, you'll want to put them back on in the same place. Next, you want to pry this plastic piece, the faceplate, off from the base of the cluster. You can put a screwdriver between it and start it to come off, or you could just pull it off with your fingers. But you want to try to pull it off as level as possible, because you don't want to break anything behind it. Once it comes off, it'll usually come off like this, and as you can see, it has these other components with these pins on them. Those pins align and slide through the base of the cluster into the circuit board. Now when you get this cluster loose, the faceplate off of it, you want to make sure that you push the ODO pack through that hole when you pull this loose, because this will be attached to the circuit board by a plug. Now you want to reach in and simply unplug the ODO pack from the back of the cluster. So there you have it. This is the pack of the ODO that has the broken gear in it. So you can see everything on this cluster is electronic impulse controlled. Nothing is controlled by cable. Alright, the gear that is broke is behind this little motor assembly, and it has 2 Phillips screws holding it in. So go ahead and remove those 2 Phillips screws. Now this is the reset mechanism to reset the cluster, and you see if you push the button in, it activates this arm up top that pushes that lever back and resets the counter on the front. As you've seen, that counter was at 700 miles or something other. Now it's reset. So once you get these 2 screws off the end, carefully pull this off of the end so you can see the gear in there. Now that gear on the inside of there is often the one that has broken teeth on it. Now, I've never had the desire to try to take one of these apart to get the mileage corrected on here, but if you put a drill or something with a rubber tip on it over here on this side, you can roll this up on this side and it'll start counting those mileage up. But man, you'd have a long way to go to correct, you know, say 20 or 30 or 50,000 miles. You'd have to let that thing run a long time. So you can try to do that if you want. There's also a gear in here that you can spin to start to turn those mileages up. But again, like I said, it's a long drawn out process. I wouldn't want to be part of it trying to fix the mileage on these cars. Once you get this motor assembly off the side, you see that little gear pack there. You lift that up off the motor. You don't want the motor to come out. You want to leave that in there. And on the back here, you see that little plastic piece with teeth on it. That's the gear that's normally broken. So that just slides off that plastic piece and slides back on. And then you slide this back on the motor and start putting everything back together. Once you get the gear replaced on that motor, go ahead and set that motor back on here and put those 2 screws in it. Then you want to plug the unit back in to the circuit board. When you set this back in there, the back of it will go into a little socket back there so you can get it lined up correctly. Make sure all these instruments are locked into the back of the faceplate. I've seen them come loose where they're not locked in. Then you want to take your faceplate and set it on the base of the cluster. Make sure everything's lined up so you can push those pins through the back of the base of the cluster. Do it with both hands and put pressure on it evenly so it sits in right. Once you got the faceplate pushed back in the base, go ahead and take the front of the cluster and set it over there. Again, making sure that you get your odometer reset and your other things lined up with the holes on the front of the cluster. Before you put the face of it on, you might want to clean the inside of the plastic. Make sure you don't have any dirt or dust in there. And again, if you got any bulbs out, replace your bulbs. Screw those 9 screws on the back of the cluster, and then you're all done. If you feel that this information was beneficial, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can also subscribe to my channel so that you can get notification of future videos that I post. Visit my channel. I have all types of do-it-yourself videos there. You can leave questions here and I'll try to respond to them as quick as possible. You can also visit my website at robertspinner.com Thanks again for watching.